Hi, this is Matt Levine with SHB 450 Video Reflection 5 for Do Hard Things by Steve Magnus. Getting started with Chapter 8, Number 1, the differences between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex. So first, kind of just describe what each does. The amygdala is kind of like an alarm system. It interprets stress as good or bad right in the moment, and very interactive. As it was shown by the monks in the different trials from yoga and monks and people who have great discipline of this, lower levels in this amygdala, they have better control, and that's something obviously everyone wants to achieve, and something I'm really trying to achieve, and that's through different tactics, from just removing myself from situations, or when I do feel that stress coming, or like a high leverage situation, keeping my first reaction, my first instinct in mind, but kind of having a thoughtful dialogue in my own head about it, or removing myself from the situation for a short period of time and then going back into it. The PFC, the prefrontal cortex, regulates emotional responses and maintains performance during the task at hand. So that's kind of like when that stress comes during those high leverage situations, when it's like, oh crap, what do I do? The prefrontal cortex makes sure we don't stop while we're thinking that. We keep going, we keep pushing through, we keep completing our task as we hope to. And these two are connected, obviously, and when one is higher, the other is higher, and they regulate each other and work off each other in that type sort of way. For number 2, creating space is a tool that we can all learn to use. One that helps us disconnect the initial sensation from the reverberating emotional response. Why is it that truly defines grittiness? So a time that I really kind of removed myself and took the time and sat away from a situation. There's numerous of them, not to get into too specifics, but he kind of briefly touches on it in the chapter. Arguments with a girlfriend. Not that it's anything too consequential, but just the short moments of, hey, you go, I'm gonna just take my space for 5 minutes and think of what we should do. Or with parents, especially growing up in high school, everybody, as much as I hate to say it, everybody goes through that phase of being like the typical teenager that doesn't want anything to do with their parents, which is completely flipped. But from what I am now, and I have a great relationship with my parents, but everybody has those moments of like everything is, you button heads on everything. So just taking that space. And another one I thought of is with roommates. Not that I've had any disagreements with my roommates again, but just having the private space, as opposed to somebody who lives in the dorms and doesn't have that private space, to where I can come and seclude myself. If I want to be alone, like I am right now, I can shut the door. No one will interrupt me unless I ask for it, or really need it. But if I want to seclude myself and think through a problem or handle a situation by myself, I have the freedom to do that. And I think that is good for clearing your head. It's good for not making any rash decisions and doing something you might regret. For number 3, the 3 exercises. So the exercise that I think would work best for myself is, that's the second one he talks about, turning the dial, increase and decrease the volume. So when he was kind of laying out the different steps of this, performing tasks, which usually utilizes distractions. And one of the ones he gave in the examples was maybe he was going for a walk or jog, but using jogging as an example for me could not have been a better example. I work out 4 or 5 days a week lifting, and then I try to incorporate some running with it. And I do not like jogging. Maybe it's because I was conditioned all those years in basketball that running is a punishment, but regardless, I do not like running. But when I do it and I listen to music, I'm always thinking, all right, I got 3 songs left till I'm done, or I got 6 songs left till I'm done. But when I ran, the last time I did it, I ran around Concordia, like the mile loop or whatever. I didn't put any music in, and I literally just listened to the world. And it was the most peaceful, like tranquil moments I've had in a while. And it was literally something I look forward to doing the next time. So it's not something I like normally do. It was something out of necessity because I forgot my headphones one day. And it was awesome how tranquil and just introspective I could be while not having to focus on the task of running. And if I wanted to, I could, oh wow, there's the beautiful lake right there, be in the present, be in the moment, take in those sounds and sights, but also being introspective, thinking about any problems, any homework, any situations, my future, stuff like that. And it was very introspective and very relaxing. All right, moving on to chapter 9. Explain the difference between top-down and bottom-up processing. So top-down is very context-driven, and it's sort of the brain predicting based on the variables that it knows. And it uses the example of public speaking, and I'm going to jump on that too. So in high school, I gave one of the graduation speeches at my school, and I wrote a I'm biased, but I thought it was a pretty good speech. I've not really had too many formal public speaking engagements at that time. Not many people do. And I was confident that I would do well, but still in the moment, I was like, whoa, this is a lot of people I'm speaking to right now, kind of having that immediate stress for no reason. And I did fine, it went well. I got a lot of compliments over it, and I think I did well. I hope nobody was lying to my face. But it kind of gave me the confidence going forward that I could do it. But up until that point, I hadn't had a lot of experiences like this. So my brain's top-down processing was a lot of, what can go wrong? This can go wrong. This can go wrong. This can go wrong. But now, as I've worked through that, I think I'm speaking at an event for the Mentor Initiative on the 24th of April, and I'm really looking forward to it more than stressed out about it. Something that I'm really eager to do. And I'm going to type something out. I'm going to go up there, and it's going to be in front of a smaller group of people, but a lot of important business people. And I'm just going to tell my story and be confident in doing it because I've had that. But the first time I did do a formal public speaking engagement, the top-down processing not nearly got the better of me, but it was definitely a thought. The bottom up, so it's basically the opposite. It's sensory driven. It's working in real time, and something like that. I think of basketball, reading a defense in a play call, or a quick passing one more to an open shooter or something like that, and I think those are perfect examples of very sensory driven. It's like I didn't predetermine, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. It's literally reading the situation in front of you and reacting the first instinct possible. But as the book states, you often use a combination of both. So those were just two examples I could think of where I used a lot of one or a lot of the other. Two, I believe that is attention versus cognitive. Attention strategies and cognitive strategies. So attention strategies direct our focus toward or away from emotion, which I thought was an interesting way of putting it. Toward or away, it's kind of like either one, so you can lean into it or you can pull yourself out of it, whatever it is. We can focus on specific things to distract ourselves from another, and that's something to go back to my jogging example that I just used. I would focus on the jogging to distract myself from my problems outside of that, or I would focus on my other problems to distract me from the fact that I hate jogging. So that's kind of how I interpreted it. Cognitive would be utilizing cognitive control to suppress, detach, or reappraise emotions. And this is something I've been trying to do more of recently. Obviously, I didn't know it was like a formal practice, but just kind of looking back in my life, it's something I've always tried to do, where not just having the same reaction to specific news or specific hurdle. Sometimes I may want to detach myself from a situation or a thought process or an action or something like that, and a similar action where I normally would react by being aggressive towards it or jumping at the bit to argue it or debate it. Maybe I would just, okay, let's reappraise those emotions. Let's use the cognitive skills we have. Let's think through. Let's just remove ourselves or be cordial about it rather than getting in an argument, getting into a debate, and potentially burning a bridge with someone I care about. Lastly, number 3, the coping strategies. So again, this is something, the kind of an overarching theme of the book. Obviously, the different kinds of toughness we can harness and develop, but all those are really good for nothing if you don't have these coping strategies. Coping basically amplifies or blunts. They use it, blunts, diminishes, how I would say it, the situation. I think of a high stress situation. For example, not to go back to it every video, but here's my weekly reference to it, my law school admissions test. Logic games, one of the sections of it, without going into much detail, there's all sorts of questions. Basically, like, there's 6 houses. Tom lives in the first, Susie lives in the second, who lives in the fourth, whatever. So stuff like that. And they give you these certain details, and it's pretty difficult. But once you figure out a strategy to do it, you can learn specific games, and then it's just basically a game and all that is. So I did pretty well on them. I always do pretty well on them. But there was a time where it was very difficult, especially on the LSAT that I took for the official score. There was a game pattern, a game model, I guess, that I wasn't too familiar with. I had done a couple in my practice, but not too many. And rather than, oh my gosh, I'm screwed, I'm going to get all 6, 7, 8 of these questions wrong, it's going to tank my score to what it should be, it was like, okay, let's just finish the other ones, because I knew the other ones I had pretty good grasp on, and I finished those quicker, and then circled back to this one, was able to devote extra time to it. And I did well on it. I can't see my official results for that specific game, but the score I got would indicate that I didn't get all of them wrong, and I did very well on it. So, I think handling adversity, there's always, the first reaction of shying away from it or going up to it. And I think having those coping strategies really gives you the time and the resources necessary to understand and know which ones are the right one for that situation. Because there's a time for everything, the old euphemism. So having that having the skill set and the knowledge of, okay, this is the type of situation where I just need to back up. I just got to relax, whether it be going to a room by myself or something like that. Or I need to be around people. You know, it can be polar opposites and both have the same effect for coping through different problems. It all is just applicable to different issues based on the variables and knowing yourself. I am a person that's better probably introspectively and by myself than with a group of people. I'm fine in both. I think that's something I'm good at. I'm good at handling people in different situations. But if something goes wrong in my life or there's a big stress, a lot of times I like to think it through by myself and don't need or don't want anybody to distract me is how I look at it, rather than offer their helping hand. I understand the intentions are there. Sorry, excuse me. But, going into my room and putting on some music or just laying there and praying about it, honestly, is a great coping mechanism that I think America should resort to in times where there's a lot of stress. But I'll get off my soapbox. This was Video Reflection 5 for Do Hard Things by Steve Magnus. Thank you.